everyone, how's it going? So in case you're new here, my name is Atousa and I have just finished my first year of graduate medicine at the University of Birmingham. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of the graduate course at Birmingham, in particular the first year. Now, because this is a graduate course, instead of completing the entirety of the course in 5 years, which is what the undergraduate course consists of, the graduate course you can complete in 4 years. And that is because the first 2 preclinical years of the 5-year course is essentially condensed into one super intense year for the first year. And at Birmingham, the way that the teaching works in this year is by following a method called problem-based learning, or PBL. Now, I think quite a few other medical schools also use this learning method, and I know that certain other courses, like physician's associates or certain nursing courses, I believe, may also use this kind of learning as well. But if you've never heard of this before and you want to get a little bit more familiar with what it is, how it works, and specifically how it works at Birmingham, then I really hope this video can be informative and give you a bit of an insight into how it all works. And I thought it might be quite interesting to give you an overview of what a typical week on the grad course looks like in the first year, because I know when I had just gotten my offer, I was Googling around to see if anybody else had made this sort of video and I couldn't find one. So hopefully this will be useful for anybody in the future who's either considering applying to this course or who has already gotten accepted. Alright, okay, so PBL is essentially a method of learning in which you study or learn by interacting with a given medical problem or scenario. Now, I'll get into the details of that in a moment, but firstly let me just tell you a little bit about how the course structure is run. In this year, which is my current cohort, we have 43 students, and these 43 students are divided into groups of roughly 8, I know some groups had 9, and each group is allocated to a specific room. Now, the way that the groups get divided, or I should say the way that the individuals are divided into groups, depends on what you did prior to starting graduate medicine. So for example, if you have a group of 8, the way that we are split up, the staff have done this purposefully to make sure that there is a selection of people in there. So you may see that in one group you have 1 pharmacist, you have 1 physician's associate, you might have 1 psychologist, you may have a couple of people from a biomedical sciences background, and that's just to ensure that there is a diverse group of people working together. Now, as I said, we are all allocated a specific room, and these rooms are essentially built for function. And the way that they look is you have this rectangular table right in the centre, and we all sort of sit around it like a round table. And on each of the walls you have got 3 or 4, depending on the room, huge whiteboards on either side. And as well as that, each room is allocated its own resource book, or resource books I should say, so each room has a little locked wardrobe that has got plenty of books from ethics to physiology to pathology, and that's something that we can dip in and out of and use while we are in the rooms. As well as that, we also have allocated anatomy models and structures that we can kind of play around with to help our learning. Now, during the PBL sessions that we also have a moderator who accompanies us. Now, these moderators are a mix of physicians, PhD doctors, or general faculty members, and their role is literally just to facilitate the sessions. They aren't there to give you like tutoring, or they aren't there to formally teach you, but they are there to oversee the sessions and give us advice if we are going off track, or sort of guide us back and make sure we're getting the gist of the problem right. So going back to the actual problem that we may be given, these are typically an A4 piece of paper, and I would say they're around 400 to 500 words each. And they will be discussing a specific scenario, and the topics correlate to whatever module it is that we're learning that week. So let's say we are studying the topic on cardiovascular health. Then one of our problems could be Mr. Smith comes in with crushing chest pain, blah blah blah, and the topics generally include a mixture of pathology, physiology, and also a number of like ethics and psychology and socioeconomic factors as well. So for the purpose of this video, I sort of just like made up a little problem just to give you an example, because I don't think that we're allowed to share any of the problems that we've been given this year throughout our actual course. So here's a little demonstration. Mrs. Beverly is a 58-year-old woman who has recently found a lump in her breast. Her mother and aunt both died of breast cancer. She admits to having a few too many to drink on a number of occasions, but disregards her husband's concern, who thinks that she may be using alcohol as a coping tool to deal with her stressful job. She also has a 15-year-old daughter and is worried that her daughter too may develop breast cancer in the future. So that might be like a general shorter version of the kind of problem that we may get. Now, the way that we start off these sessions is when we're in our groups and sitting around the table, there are 2 roles that are allocated to different members of the group, and these change every week. So, for example, we will have one person who is the designated chair, and that's the person who leads the meeting or chairs the meeting. And secondly, we have one person who's designated the role of a scribe, or the person who writes on the board for that particular session. The session begins with the chair reading out the problem. As we are reading this out, we kind of highlight and underline certain keywords and key themes that we're later going to discuss on the board. Once we've done that, we work as a group and we come up with a couple of themes that we may have picked out from that particular scenario. So in the example that I just gave, some of the key themes would be breast cancer, stress, addictions/alcoholism, genetic risk factors, as well as certain other things such as breast anatomy and breast histology. And once we have identified these key concepts, we will then move on to another one of the big whiteboards in the room and begin our huge mind map. Again, I'm not going to show you a picture of an actual mind map that we created in our sessions, just in case the university isn't going to be happy about it. But again, for demonstration purposes, hang on, let me just grab it. I created a little mind map here just to give you an idea of typically what our mind maps would look like. So I hope you can see that. But essentially what we would do we would write the name of the patient in the center of the mind map. And then we would highlight some key points. So for example, cancer is a big key concept, breast anatomy, breast histology, stress, addictions, all of these things. And we would gradually take the concepts apart and explore them on the board. And you can pause the video and have a quick look, but that is like a really, really rough version of what our mind map would look like. Now, one thing that you would have noticed, and this wasn't done by accident, is that there will be huge chunks of information missing from this mind map, depending on how much we know in our initial session. So because we are graduate students, we do have collective knowledge between the 8 or 9 of us to be able to contribute enough information to get a mind map going, but we might not have all of the details. And it's because of that that we're able to set ourselves 15 learning objectives that we can go away and learn and then come back and discuss on the Friday. Now, to give you an example, one of the things that I had written down on that mind map was breast anatomy. And on there, I only had like chunks of information like breast lobules or ducts. So based on that, at the end of our mind mapping session, we as a group may decide that, okay, our first learning objective is what is the anatomy of the breast and how does this relate to its function? And we would do this with 15 questions based on everything that we discussed on the mind map. Then we can go away, learn these, come up with the answers, and then come back on Friday morning and again discuss them as a group. Now, one thing that I forgot to say is that both on the Tuesday meetings, where we explore the concepts on the whiteboard in our mind map, and also on Friday, where we come back and collectively discuss the learning objectives, we aren't allowed any notes, we aren't allowed to use our phones or laptops or any other external resources. So essentially, we have to go away and learn everything from Tuesday and have enough of a knowledge to be able to come back on Friday and discuss it. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, it is a lot of work, especially when it's certain topics that A, are just difficult, or B, they are outside of your area of expertise, or they aren't something that you've previously covered before. But the beauty of PBL is that because everybody kind of has a different area of expertise and different people have different chunks of information from their previous degrees, this means that the sessions do run relatively smoothly and people can contribute as much or as little as they have done for the week. Having said that, that's not a reason for you to think, well, I've never done cancer biology before, so I'm just going to leave it to the people who have done this before. Because ultimately, you get out of PBL what you put in it, and basically the more effort you put in your spare time outside of the sessions, the more you will get out of it. Because as you hear your colleagues and your friends discuss certain topics, then it will help you learn, and you will be able to pick things up as you go along in the sessions. Now, at the end of the Friday session, we may have gotten through all of our learning objectives, but still find that there are certain aspects that nobody covered, or that there are certain extra questions that we all have. In which case, we take note of some of the questions that came out of the Friday session, and we submit them via email to a number of experts. Now, these experts can be anybody within the healthcare field, so they could be your doctors, physicians, surgeons, physiotherapists, psychologists, sociologists, epidemiologists, whatever, you name it. And what we do is we email some of our questions to our experts who get a chance to read over these and come up with answers over the weekend. And then on Mondays, we have sessions where we attend, and these are essentially called expert sessions, where these experts answer some of our questions. And finally, the process kind of comes full circle, that after Monday, when we have these expert sessions, the Tuesday morning, we finalise anything that was left behind from the previous week's problem. And that's about roughly an hour and a bit. And once we've discussed that, then we will be given a new problem, and then the week restarts again. And if you have noticed, our weeks don't run from Monday to Monday, they run Tuesday to Tuesday. So I'm just going to put on the screen now a basic structure of what our week looks like. So I have just discussed the main PBL sessions of the week, but as you can see, there is also CBM on a Thursday and anatomy on a Monday and Wednesday. So I'm just going to discuss those with you as well. So as you can see, on Wednesday afternoons, we have got a chunk of time where we would do anatomy. And on the Monday, we have got self-directed anatomy group sessions where we essentially discuss certain groups and cover the basics. Did I say discuss certain groups? Discuss certain topics within our groups and prepare for the anatomy sessions that we are going to have on the Wednesday. And I'm not going to get into the full detail of that because it's a bit confusing, and once you get to this stage then it'll all make sense. But for the purpose of this video, on Monday we do a little bit of preparation, and then on Wednesday we follow it up with an anatomy demonstration. And these anatomy demonstrations differ in how they're presented. So we often have dedicated anatomy demonstrators who are either experts in a field, or very often they are surgeons or doctors who are wanting to become surgeons. And these often take place in a specific anatomy room, and here we have access to lots more models, lots more specimens, and occasionally we go to what is called a prosectorium, where we get to have a look and learn from actual human specimens, which itself is just incredible. And that's always one of my favorite things to do. I think it's like that for a lot of students. And then finally on Thursdays we have got something called CBM, which stands for Community-Based Medicine, and essentially this is our GPs. The way it works for us is that we are split up into small groups and we get allocated certain GPs around the area. And here is where we get an opportunity to work in small groups with our GP tutors, who give us almost small group teaching sessions, as well as allowing us to practical clinical skills, allowing us to go and sit in consultations with other GPs in the practice. We get to discuss certain patients, we get to practice taking histories. And this again is one of the highlights of the week for a lot of people, because it's very hands-on and you almost get a taste of what it's like to be in that clinical setting. So that itself is also brilliant. And also the topics that we do discuss with our GPs on Thursdays often correlate with the problem that we are doing during that week. So let's say that on one week we are learning about breast cancer, then on the Thursday, what the GP practice tries to do, and it's not always possible depending on patient availability, but if it is possible, they may ask certain patients to come in who have breast cancer or who have had breast cancer. And that gives us an opportunity to speak to these patients and get a view of their experience and their journey, which itself is incredibly valuable. And there you have it. That is a very basic overview of the week. And now you may be looking at this timetable and thinking, well, that's not too bad, you seem to have loads of free time. Well, that was essentially just the skeleton of the timetable. So what I'm going to do now is just put on the screen a typical week that I have taken from my own calendar from sometime back in October, just to give you an idea of what it's like. As you can see, some of the empty slots is filled up with lectures, small teaching groups, and also a couple of hours of basic life training, and that is where we do things like CPR on Monday evenings. Now, don't worry about it, because I know people always find this Monday evening thing daunting. I know we certainly all did at the time, but it only lasts for 4 weeks. And after that, you'll finish the BLS course and it will just continue with your normal timetable. And that's it. That's pretty much what a typical week looks like for us, and that's also what PBL generally consists of at Birmingham on the 4-year graduate medicine course. And that's it. I hope this has been informative for you. I haven't gone into the full details of the course and the full details of how everything runs just for the purpose of time, but I hope this itself gives you a basic idea of what you can expect. And I think I'm going to leave it here for now. So if you have any further questions, leave them in the comments below and I will try and get back to you. But until next time, take care and I will see you later.